Matthew from Philly. Beautiful. All right, folks. Today we begin chapter 8. And today's class will bring to a conclusion Teshuvah Tattah, the lower level of penitence, of Teshuvah, of return. As we say, Teshuvah means to return the hay. The lower level of Teshuvah is returning the latter hay in God's name. As we see, there's another hay, which tomorrow we will begin the higher level of penitence of Teshuvah. So we're returning. What are we returning? We're returning the Shekhinah, the divine presence of God, to its rightful place. We're returning our soul to its rightful place, meaning through doing something sinful. What have we done? We've gone against the will of God. The will of God is represented by the thorn on the yud over here that points upwards to be on the name of God. The name of God, as we've learned, embodies the 10 divine attributes, the spheros, or the garments, as the Zohar calls it. These are the modes of expression, or how God creates the world and conducts his world through the 10 divine attributes. Chachma, Bina, V'das, Chesed, Gvur, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, Malchus. That was quick, but we've learned it before. 3 intellectuals, 7 emotions that God creates and conducts the world with. Beyond intelligence and emotions is will, the divine will. Well, when you go against the divine will, what have we done? We've created a barrier that the vitality that comes from the Ein Sof, the limitlessness of God, the infinite of God, which is represented beyond the letter, the thorn that's pointing upwards. Now that infinite light will not be funneled through the divine name, which is the name that is the 10 attributes again, that funnels the divine energy into creation every moment of every day. And when you go against the divine will, so then it impedes that divine energy, that it should come, that it should come directly into our soul. Now, in the times of exile, as we explain, there's another layer that it doesn't come direct. It comes through klipas noiga, through the shell that covers over, and that's where the divine energy is filtered through in the times of exile. So therefore, we have a choice where to choose our vitality, from the godly source itself, or, God forbid, transgression means we're choosing from a place of defilement, we're a place of impurity that's even called death, and we're not getting it through the flow of the infinite, the divine will, into the name of God that comes now into our soul. So that needs to be rectified. Teshuvah, Tashuv, returns the hay in God's name, because what happened over here through sin is God's name, the letter hay, which is Malchus, the word of God, is now fallen. The Shekhinah, the divine presence also, has fallen from its connection to the divine name, so the flow of divine energy is not coming to us. Right? It's coming through Klipa. So we need to restore the hay. Well, how are you going to do that? Well, you have to go to a place that's the inner will of God that will touch, or will reinstate the divine will, that the divine will should now bring the divine energy into to the name of God, to bring back the hay that has fallen to the wayside into an exile, and reconnected to the name of God, to now we can get the divine energy from that name of God to us. How are we going to do that? What are we touching? What are we reaching? Well, there's a deeper place, and that's called the divine compassion of God. The divine compassion, an infinite form of compassion. There are two types of compassion, as we can see in the human condition. Also, there's a compassion that, you have compassion, but unlimited. You did something wrong to me a few times, my compassion is going to wane. But then there's a place of compassion that is of an infinite nature. And that is above and beyond. It's not one of the divine attributes, because compassion is actually an attribute, right? It's Tiferes. But this is the 13 divine attributes of compassion that are beyond the normative, measured form of compassion, even in a divine sense. And when we do Teshuvah Tattah, and we return the Hey in God's name, what we need to reach is to this place of supreme mercy that is alluded to, again, by the Yud and the thorn on top, that is raised above, that is the inner divine will of God. The inner divine will of God, that he wants us to be connected to him, that when we create a disconnect, that we should awaken above this supreme mercy. How do we do with that? Well, that's what we spoke about in the previous chapter. What we need to do is awaken in ourselves two things: compassion for my soul, compassion for the divine Shekhinah, divine presence of God that is in exile, and to break and shatter the negative nature of the body and the animal's soul through a broken heart, the contrite heart, that will then be the direct and straight and true path to Teshuvah that will really make change. And then when we've meditated upon those two elements, that will elicit divine compassion that will again issue the flow, reconnect the Hey to the Vav. And the divine flow will once again come to us in our lives. And no longer will we be receiving vitality from a negative place, from negative force of Sitter Acher. And then this is cleansing of my soul as a result. This is cleansing because, again, vitality is coming from the divine name of God. And then the negative extraneous forces will no longer be affecting me and the world around me, because it's been returned to its proper place. And we will not be separated from God, and will be cleansed. And this is then the idea of Teshuvah Tattah, the lower level of Teshuvah. Even though this sounds quite something, but this is only a lower level. Why is it a lower level? Is because, first of all, it's dealing with sin. We've done something wrong. We need to rectify. And that's what we're doing. We're rectifying, cleansing ourselves. We're returning our divine, our soul to its rightful place, meaning that we're getting vitality directly from God's name. Why? Again, because we were able to reach to a deeper place, to awaken the divine will through the divine compassion, the infinite divine compassion of God, and therefore the flow of divine energy from the infinite will then come through that point of the thorn of the Yud, through the name of God, and it'll bring back that divine flow to us, and therefore cleansing everything. Now, this again is the lower level, relating to Malchus in us. What is Malchus in us? Royalty is our behavior. Our behavior is the Malchus in us. So, what we this is rectifying our behavior. What we're going to learn tomorrow is that there's a higher level of tshuva. Tshuva ilah, a supernal level that has nothing to do with doing anything wrong. And what that means is, we gotta stay tuned. Tomorrow, we will learn something new. You might ask, well, am I holding by that? I've got things to fix, right? We got things to fix. At the same time, there is a higher level that we can also entertain in our lives that is also necessary. All right, folks, we have any questions, any comments? Now is the time. If you want any further understanding of this Teshuvah Tattah, Michael from Ashkenaz, from Germany, Andrea, Linda from New York, Margot also from New York, Aliza, you're asking about Ruach. What do you mean by that? I'm not certain. Please clarify. Sandy, good morning. Thank you for joining. Penina from Mohapak, New York. Saratoga. Oh, okay. From Temple Bet Shalom. Thank you for joining, Penina. I had an aunt by the name of Penina. Denise, how do we know that our tshuva has been accepted? If we're sincere in our return, one of the things that we need to know is that God is forever forgiving, even though we may have asked forgiveness often. God is infinite in his forgiving, and we need to know that. We need to believe that. We need to have trust in God. The question, of course, is have we done it, tshuva, appropriately? So, it's a good question. And, the most important thing is the mode of service of tshuva. It's been accepted or not. We trust in God that he accepts it if we're sincere. Rena from Colorado, Boker Tov. Cindy from Florida, good morning. What happens if we rectify our actions but not our thoughts? So that's a mistake people make. They think that thoughts are not part of our behavior. Thoughts are. In Jewish teachings, thoughts, a meditated thought, a cogitated thought, is part of our behavior because we can control it. If a negative thought comes into my mind, I could push away that thought. So we're responsible for that. So we need to do tshuva for that too. We can't just do tshuva. If I said and did something bad, and I rectified that, but I'm still thinking really negative about that person, let's, for argument's sake, right? So we need to do tshuva for that because God doesn't want that. Thank you, Imar. Okay, I'm glad you got it. Clem, all right, the connection with Ruach HaKodesh. I'm not clear on what that means. What you mean, I don't know what the Ruach HaKodesh is over here. Margot, do angels have a chance to do tshuva or are only elevated levels or at all? Angels do not do tshuva because they don't do anything wrong. This is something that we're lucky to get. Angels are only messengers, emissaries of God to do God's biddings. They are a divine energy force that God uses to engage in creation. But they have no choice, so they don't do wrong. So they have no tshuva. Thank you for the good question. Michelle, responding to Denise, very good. Actually, Michelle, what you're saying is going to be a part of the next class, the next level of tshuva. Okay, Lisa is saying forgiveness through unmerited favor. Very good. Ben Boker Tov, Paula. They don't have our relationships exactly. Okay. Diane is asking, can we call upon angels to help in a particular situation? That's not a Jewish thing, to call upon angels. You know why? Because our power is much greater than angels. Although sometimes we do make reference to angels, but a divine soul is much loftier and greater. A divine soul, of course, can fall and be exiled. A prince could be in prison. We could be imprisoned in our, with our soul because of the body and animal soul that control it. But it's still a prince. It's still divine, part of God, as opposed to the angel is a creation of God. So we have a much greater power. Therefore, we don't beseech the angels. As a general sense, we don't, even though there might be some instances, perhaps. Need to look into that. But as a whole, no. We are much loftier, and if anything, we are besieging holy, righteous people who have a divine soul that is revealed in its fullness, that they can help. I hope that answers the question. Are you from Miami? Boker Tov. Linda from the Netherlands. Hello. No more from Texas. All right, folks. Sharing is caring. Please share the Alter Rebbe's teachings with others. That concludes Teshuvah Tattah, the lower level. Tomorrow we continue with the next level of return. So please return tomorrow. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from my home in Montreal, Canada, where it's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. Have a wonderful day.